It's not too late to buy Bitcoin. It has only just begun. There's a misconception that you have to buy one whole Bitcoin. This is called a unit bias, where you think you need you hold one whole thing of something to be an owner. This is why people buy XRP, Ethereum, Solana, ADA, because they think it's more affordable because they can buy multiple coins. But in reality, you don't need a whole Bitcoin. You don't need to spend 100 grand US. You can actually spend $1 or $10 or $100 of Bitcoin and then just get Satoshis. So treat Satoshis as your unit of account, not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin can seem quite daunting. And I don't think too many people have that amount of money laying around. But maybe you do have $10 or $100 or $1,000 laying around that you can put into Bitcoin and get some Satoshis. Now, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. This is the first asset, first currency in the world with a fixed supply, and that fixed supply is 21 million. There's never going to be more than 21 million. We reach 21 million in 2140, so I'm not going to be around to see it. But essentially, there'll be no more Bitcoin mined and released to the market after that date. And I can't change this 21 million. You can't change it. BlackRock can't change it. Michael Saylor can't change it. It doesn't matter how many people are holding Bitcoin that wish there was more to get because they think it's unfair because how late they got to it. There's never going to be more than 21 million. It is fixed. This allows Bitcoin to be deflationary. And what I mean by that is its supply is decreasing while its demand increases. So less and less and less Bitcoin over time is released to the market. So the schedule is getting tighter and tighter and tighter every halving. And so this allows a supply shock, and this essentially can kick off a bull run. And so this happens every 4 years when the supply that is getting released to the market is halved. Bitcoin adoption is growing. We are very early still. Global adoption of Bitcoin remains low at about 3% in 2025, which is similar to the internet. Back in 1998, 1999, it was 3% adoption for the internet. So if Bitcoin goes the same way as the internet, we're going to see global adoption be 66%. And that's only going to happen in about 20, 30 years where we see Bitcoin is 66%. But I think it's going to get there even faster because it's built on internet. It is tethered to internet. It is essentially the internet's money. If the internet had its own currency, it would be Bitcoin. And I think everyone is going to be forced into Bitcoin, whether they like it or not, whether they got in early or whether they got in late. It's going to be like the internet where you can refuse it as much as you want, but it's going to be integrated into your business, integrated into your personal lives, your friends' lives, your family lives, and you're going to have to join it. And I think we see that right now the US is the global reserve currency, but we're going to see Bitcoin be the global reserve currency because it's far more global. You don't have to trade in between different local currencies and pay the huge fees and have a capped transaction amount. Bitcoin will send transactions and payments global, and therefore everything around Bitcoin is going to be priced in Bitcoin. So that adoption is going to grow extremely fast, and 3% in 16 years is also very, very good already. So individuals own nearly 70% of Bitcoin. So that's me, that's you. We still own 70%, and it's good because we've kept the supply decentralized. It's not all held by one entity that can just dump the market, manipulate people, have power. This is sort of what we've seen in other markets, like BlackRock has dominated the real estate market, dominated the gold market, and they are essentially eating up so much of the supply. They've got deals with the central bank, and all these elites have bought everything like scarce land, gold, and now they're buying Bitcoin like ETFs. But at least we're still holding 70% of the supply, and we want to keep it like that. So buy as much as you can now before they get their hands on it, because they're buying more than we can, and we need to get our individuals number up. So ETFs are holding around 800,000 currently. I believe that was 1.4 more recently, 1.4 million. But I think they tried to dump the market to get some cheaper prices and it failed. Or maybe there's a bit of manipulation going on with how much they're holding. Maybe there's a bit of paper Bitcoin. But yeah, there's obviously been no stress on the market when they dump that Bitcoin balance. Now, publicly traded companies, nearly 800,000. A majority of that is held by Michael Saylor's company Strategy, which is holding 560,000 Bitcoin. Now, exchanges, 155,000. I think that number is inaccurate, but I also think this could just be the amount they're holding 1-to-1 ratio, maybe in cold storage or as a company. but there's around 1.5 million Bitcoin on markets and exchanges right now. So don't be confused by that. Government's 527,000. So we see the US is leading with over 200,000 Bitcoin, but China is in a close second. And so that's quite interesting. And then we've got private companies, 286,000. Then we've got DeFi and smart contracts, 221,000. So a lot of people are buying some pretty big bags. Like, do you have 200,000 Bitcoin? I doubt it. And if you do, give me some. So what if the printing continues? So Bitcoin could go to 100 million a coin if printing continues, because I recently got a comment that said, you're an idiot because that sends it to a $2 quadrillion market cap, and that's never been seen before, and yada, yada. That's just not possible. There's not enough money. And the reality is, look, they're printing so much money. We can't audit how much money. We can't figure out how much is in the global system. And it's just, we can't even project how much they're going to continue to print. And we can look at things like $36 trillion of debt, which is held by the US. They're meant to be like the strongest in the world, and they're cooked. And so they've been printing way more than they said they would, way more than they should have. And they've basically taken advantage of being able to print money and benefit themselves, benefit the rich, and they're causing a wealth gap even wider than it used to be. And so if you're not directly close to the money printer or in some sort of cahoots, then you're getting cooked and everything around you is getting more expensive. But Bitcoin is the best money vacuum we've ever seen because it has a limited supply and because it can act as a currency and the hardest money in the world. So it can suck from any market and it can suck the printed dollars. And essentially, yeah, it will just be a money vacuum, and we'll see a $10 million Bitcoin in our lifetime. We'll see a $50 million Bitcoin. And $100 million might happen in our lifetime, or it might happen in the next. But if they continue to print money, these numbers are not even ridiculous. They're actually very realistic. So Bitcoin serves as a hedge/solution against fiat currency devaluation. Central banks are expected to continue printing money, which reduces the value of traditional currencies. So as they print money, say for the US dollar is now worth less. So you can buy less things because assets and goods and services all have to absorb the capital somehow, and so their prices go up. Bitcoin's fixed supply protects against this inflation, and it can be a vacuum to printed dollars, which is what I said before. But imagine this, if central banks began purchasing Bitcoin with newly printed money, so literally as a strategy, not just printing money and then it eventually floods to Bitcoin, which will happen. But imagine they strategically, like the US goes, we're actually going to try and print the dollar just to buy Bitcoin and be the first ones to get to 1 million Bitcoin as a country. That would send an absolute supply shock, and it would just cause Bitcoin to go to the moon. Now, this scenario has not happened yet, but that proves that we're early, because that scenario could very much happen, or something similar to that scenario. Now, I love to imagine the US just releases a press conference. Hey, we're buying 1 million or 1.5 million Bitcoin over the next 4 years, and we're sending this thing to Kingdom Come. And let's start this race to get as many Bitcoin before other countries. And I think every country will essentially follow. We'll see countries like China, even places across Europe that will go, we need a copy, because they bought so much gold, World War I, World War II. And that made them the superpower of the world. That made them the global reserve currency. We want to be the next global reserve currency, so let's back our dollar with Bitcoin, or let's just buy as much Bitcoin until that's possible. So, and we've just never seen that with an asset/currency with a limited supply. So the Bitcoin halving is something I mentioned before. It happens every 4 years, and basically the Bitcoin reward size gets halved. So the miners go and they all plug in, and they're all trying to compete for one Bitcoin block. So they're all competing for the same block. There's not multiple blocks that get distributed and everyone gets a fair chunk. It's basically fair game. If you're involved, you have a chance, but you also have a chance to just lose. You might not get anything. Now, a block is hit every 10 minutes, and that reward either gets distributed to a solo miner that is mining by himself, and they receive the full reward. Or if you're in a mining pool, so you're all as a collective trying to get the reward, and everyone in the world has equal chance. Let's say that your pool does hit it as a collective, then that gets distributed. The reward gets distributed to everyone involved, every miner involved. And those that have more miners plugged in using more power, using more cost, they will be rewarded more than someone that's got a small, crappy little miner that's only a couple $100 that's not using much power. So that's how that works. We've seen the halving was completed last year, which is our 4th halving, which is 16 years of Bitcoin. And that halved the block reward down to 3.125 Bitcoin. And then we can see the next halving is 2028, 3 years away. And that will take us down to 1.5625 Bitcoin. Now, what's interesting, if we look at 2140, which is the 33rd Bitcoin halving, there'll be no more Bitcoin mined. And so miners that are plugged in, they cannot receive a Bitcoin reward anymore, but they can technically make an income through the transaction fees. So they can help secure the network and still be a part of it and maybe earn an income, but they would hope that the transaction fees are worth enough to cover energy cost and software cost. Bitcoin miners, who is mining Bitcoin? So we've got publicly traded companies. They are the big dogs. They have huge factory warehouses that are full of Bitcoin miners, full of hardware, and they're running like cooling systems like hydro cooling or big fans to keep everything cool and not overheated. And they're trying to get their energy costs as low as possible, so they're going to bring in renewable energy. And they have the biggest chance of hitting blocks because they have that many mining, that much computer power. And so they've got a better chance than someone that's just plugging in one little crappy $200 miner at home. Then we've got private companies that's just like that, but on a smaller scale. And yeah, they look at hydropower and solar and wind power to get energy costs down lower as well. Then we've got the solo miners, the guys in their mum's basement. Low chance of hitting, but if they do, they get to take all the rewards. Mining pools. So like I mentioned before, if you're part of a pool, then everyone gets a distributed amount of reward. Countries with abundant renewable energies. So a lot of countries across the world are realizing they have so much wasted energy. Maybe it's a hydro dam that's not in use anymore. Maybe it's a bunch of solar panels that have done their job, but are creating excess energy that we can't use. They're plugging miners in and they're essentially doing it 100% profitable because once the miners are set up and paid off, then they come in and with the energy costs so low, they're just making profit every time they hit a block. So pretty gangster. So overall, Bitcoin mining in 2025 is global, highly competitive industry involving public and private companies, mining pools, home miners, and nations harnessing renewable energy. So guys, it is not too late. We've got people mining across the world still. We have people that are onboarding, buying Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin as a savings account, transacting it as money. We're seeing the global adoption increase, heading towards that 66% across the world. We realize that Bitcoin is actually divisible by 100 million. So just try and get as many Satoshis as possible. Don't worry about trying to get a whole Bitcoin. Forget that unit of Bitcoin and switch to the unit of Satoshis. So stack sats, scan the QR code, send me some sats over the QR code through the Lightning Network, which is a layer 2 in Bitcoin, or leave a comment, subscribe, like, and we'll get some traction. So thanks guys for watching, and cheers.